Are you guys ready for this? Here's your video on how to cut and install crown like a pro. First thing you want to do is trace out your walls before you measure them. So here's my makeshift ceiling and walls. So we're going to run crown all the way around like this, okay? So the first thing you do is trace these walls onto a sheet of paper. So here it is. It looks like this to me. It doesn't have to be exact. You just need to know where the pieces are going. So the first thing that I'm going to do after I've traced the wall is start to measure every one of these. Some of these you don't have to measure because you can put them in there and mark, hold your piece up there and mark it. But a wall like this, you would definitely have to measure, okay? So what you want to do is measure at the top of the wall, right where the ceiling is. Now come in. And you can see this says that it's 5 and just under 5/8. So I'm going to write 5 and 5/8. And I'm going to write it right here so that I know 5 and 5/8. I know what that's supposed to look like already, okay? Measure all the way around, okay? Wall to wall here, we have 11 and almost 7/16. So we're going to write down the 7/16, 11, 7/16, because you always, cutting a little too big or a little too long is way better than undercutting it, okay? So if it's almost to the 16th mark, cut it at that next 16th, okay? So I'm going to measure the rest of these. See, we got 3 and 5/8. And then here we've got, see that it's at 13 and 15/16, but it's still a little bit, the edge of it is still past that, just a little bit. So I'm going to say 14. And then the last one is 4 and 3/8. Okay, so we've got everything written down. Okay, and the crown is all going to be on this side. So the first thing we're going to do is come over to the chop saw. Oh, I already have these. Come over to the chop saw and cut our pieces. Now, I like to cut all of the pieces on my list first. It just makes it a lot easier, I think. And I always start by cutting the longest piece first, because your material, you'll get a lot more pieces out than cutting the small pieces and then working out, oh, I don't have enough for my larger pieces. So I'm going to cut the first one. So the first thing I'm going to do, when you cut crown, this is my, let's see, where is it? My top. This is my top edge here, okay? And this is going to be the edge that sits on the wall. This is going to go up against the ceiling. And you see how this is square here? Makes an L shape. This is going to sit in here like this, okay? But the trick about crown is you can't cut it the same way as your ceiling. So this is the top of the ceiling. What I mean is, if this goes to the ceiling and I try to cut my pieces, it'll never work out. Why? Because you have to cut it upside down. And that's really the the hard part. Okay, so the hard part in figuring out how to cut crown is what I should say. It's not hard to cut it upside down at all. It's completely normal. Okay, so if you don't know what these pieces should look like so far, this is what I like to do. At every 90-degree angle, I put a line like this, okay? Because this is the way, just like if it was a picture frame and you're looking straight down on it, right? This is exactly the way your pieces are going to go inside here, okay? So what that means is this piece that I measured when I marked out the face of this, that's 14, is actually going to be 14 in the back. So that inside cut is what we want. So to make this first piece, this is what I'm doing. So I have the crown upside down. Okay. So this piece that I'm going to cut, I'm cutting it upside down. This is the part right here, okay, that I need to cut, which is this part. So I need to make this 14 at the short points of both angles. So I'll just start off by cutting a regular 45-degree angle with my chop saw, and we'll go from there. Okay, so now this piece needs to be, it needs to resemble this exact piece here, okay? So to make the piece like this X piece, we have the points going the same direction, okay? Now we got to make this way. So we need to measure up on this top edge, which sits against the wall, again, because you're cutting it upside down. We need to measure and cut it at 14 inches. This is how you do that. I turn it over, and what you're measuring from is this ledge right here. That is your innermost point. That has to go right in the corner of what I showed you as my little mock-up of the ceiling. So what I always like to do is I never put my tape on the end of it because it can get very inaccurate. So what I do is called burning an inch, and that means that I'm just starting off at the 1 inch line. My measurement is 14, so that means I need to mark it at 15. Okay? You mark the back of that, but you're not going to be able to see that mark unless you also transfer it onto the front. Then you take it back over to your chop saw, and now we need this angle to go the opposite direction so that this piece looks exactly like this piece. We have to turn our miter saw to a 45-degree angle. We're going to cut on that mark, so our piece is going to look something like this, okay? And what I always do is I set it in here, and then I'm able to look right through these vents in here. Take a look through there. You can see exactly where that saw is going to hit when it cuts it, and so it can help you be a bit more accurate on cutting it, okay? So here we go. It's still upside down because we're always going to cut them upside down. Now I'm pretty close to my mark. I don't want to cut really into my mark. I just want to be on it. Now you'll notice that I shut the saw off when I was still down in the cut like this. And the reason being that when you cut anything with this type of saw, you run the risk, if you don't let it all the way stop, if it's still going and you bring it up, you run the risk of it catching on the edge of your piece and possibly splintering it. Okay, so we've cut our piece. It looks exactly like this one, right? 14 from there to there. Why? Because it fits, goes right side up, because we cut it upside down, right? Here's our 14 that we cut like this. This goes like this. Okay? And if you look down here, put the camera down here so you can see. No, underneath. You can see this. This is what we want. We want this angle to be right at the edge of this, okay? And if your piece is just a little big, take it back on over to the saw and trim just a hair off, okay? So now I'm going to do this for all of these, and then I'll show you how to install them. But this is what we call outside angle or outside miter, because it goes out and goes back. So now we're going to do an inside to inside miter for that one. So that one is 11 7/16. We already cut this one. This is going to look opposite of what we just did. You see how here it should look like it does now? So now we're going to do this same cut on the opposite side, which simply means we need to turn our miter saw the other way. And the longest point on this piece is always going to be on the, well, this is an inside miter. So what we're going to do is a lot easier than marking the outside miter. We can just hook the tape on that, because that's the very furthermost point, is what I was trying to say, inside this area of the wall. Okay, so we're going to go 11 and 7/16. And again, you want to transfer that mark onto the face so you know where you're going to cut. So this miter, come on this side. Same deal. I have to hold my, it does make a difference if the crown that you have, if it looks like this on the back, it has two 45-degree angles. So you can't just cut it like this. It'll never work out in your lifetime. So you have to cut it like this, where the 45 sit on the fence. Okay, on the fence and on the table. Always make sure there's nothing in the way. Okay, and so now we're going to cut this piece, and it's going to go like this to match our piece here. Okay? And you see, we can barely see our mark right here, which this might be a little bit too big, so I'm just going to trim it down because it was a little bit under 11 and 7/16. So now that the piece is a little smaller, I just want to make sure that I've got it sitting in this area correctly. I can bring my piece right up till it touches the blade and then scoot it just a little further. And we're a little bit closer, but before we cut any more off, we'll go check and see what it looks like. So, let's see. That's a little tight. Let me trim a little bit off. There we go. We got a nice tight fit side to side. So now we can cut these pieces here and finish this off, and I'll show you how. Okay, so now that we have our pieces all cut out, now it's time to install them. So if you have an inside miter like this, I would start there, because it's difficult if you place these in here to get that other piece in, and you wouldn't want to do that. So right now I'm using 1¼ inch, 18-inch brad nails, or pins as I like to call them. And when I install crown, I always put glue on the outside miters, just so they don't split apart. They're really right at eye level, whereas the inside miters don't really come apart. So this is what we got. Make sure it's sitting flat against the ceiling and the wall. And you can shoot them into the wall, usually, okay? Sometimes if you have like bows in the ceiling, or maybe crown doesn't quite come together very well, you can bend or shoot into the ceiling sometimes. Okay, so now we're going to put this piece in. Look at that, nice and clean. Okay, now we're going to put this piece in. Guess I don't have to tell you we're going to put this piece in, because this is obviously what I'm doing. Just putting one of those for right now. If I was at a house and I was doing this, I would put at least 2 in there. But like I said, glue your outside miters, because you don't want to have anything get in that joint and cause your crown to split apart. If If your crown is splitting apart, there's either no glue in it or there's moisture getting to it. Okay, so what you do is put this right where it looks good, nice and clean. Look at that line. It's about as clean as it's gonna get. Oh, it came out a little bit. So it gets slippery, especially when there's glue. I would shoot this first. In some cases, you might want to shoot this together. If it stays together a little better, then you have the option to do that. Just be careful. Wipe the glue off. Put the side on. You can shoot really through anywhere in the crown, but you really want to shoot where that 45 is, which is right here and right here on the back of it. This is what I'm talking about, this area here. These are your better points to shoot at. And I've already put glue on this back miter, so just have to put this one on. Oh, and this piece of crown looked like it rolled up a little bit. You see how there's a little gap here? Let me grab my little mini crowbar and kind of pull that away. If you have gaps like this, I mean, you know, wood, crown, and ceilings and all that kind of stuff are never consistent, so it's okay. So now that I pulled it off a little bit and I got a little bend, then I can put this on. There we go. Much better fit. See that? And we just had a little bit of a roll, and it's tending to come down, so I'm going to hold that tight to my makeshift ceiling and shoot a pin there. And then this is going to fit a whole lot better. See that? And just because this little joint wanted to have some problems, I'm going to shoot it together. Let me shoot it. Sometimes crown's a pain. Shoot it to the ceiling. Keep it in place so it doesn't slip in that miter. Because if I try to shoot it right there, it might slip. So now it won't. There you go. Pan around it. That's how you install and cut your pieces. It's going to take a little trial and error, but you will eventually get it. And if you have any, you know, little caulking and stuff for the holes or whatever you got to do to make it look really good, but this is what we came up with. Whoops. My little makeshift ceiling. I hope this helps you guys. And like I said, you don't necessarily have to measure all that. If you can't read a tape measure and you really need to get this done or something, try to learn the tape measure, but you really can just start with a miter, put it in position, and mark wherever it is that you need to cut. The tricky thing is trying to remember which ones are the long cuts and which ones are the inside cuts. When you go from this inside to this outside, it's a little bit different, but once you get the hang of that, you're gonna be able to put up crown, make picture frames. It's all the same type of deal. So hope this video helps you guys out.